Thank you for coming back to my channel. For those of you that are new, welcome to Knowing the Inner You. My name is Tim. On this channel, I like to go over how the law of attraction applies in different areas of our lives. And today we're going to talk about habits. Habits dictate our lives in every area. Most of us not even aware of that we're doing certain habits or we're living from certain habits. We have habits of waking up a certain way. We have habits of telling ourselves stories a certain way, which is thinking a certain way. We have habits of how we interact with the people we interact with. We have perceptional habits that we use on how we perceive reality in so many different aspects. Habits governs our lives. I realize for myself that I have several habits I've been working on, even from some of the dialogue I use, my grammar, some of the things on how I express myself. I even have a habitual way of thinking a certain way to where I'm always acting from those thought habits. Habits are, for the most part, not a physical thing. When we see people act out something physical, those are habits, but those habits are stemming from a habitual way of thinking. We have a habitual way of proceeding throughout life with all of these habits. Habits are so small and so intricate that we sometimes are unaware of that we're acting from them. We have a way of saying things to people when we approach them or they approach us a certain way. For me, for instance, one of my habits, whenever I leave someone or someone's done something for me, I say thank you and have a good one. Now, what is a good one? I don't know, but it's something that I've formed on a habitual way that I always use. And the reason this is important for all of us to know regarding habits, our habits dictate our destiny. Our habitual way of thinking dictate our habits that dictate our destiny. And it comes back round to what are you habitually thinking about or telling yourself throughout the day. I mean, I've told myself several stories and they've played out in my life. And what I'm learning is if I'm intending to change my environment, I must change my habitual way of thinking. These stories that we play inside of our head over and over and over and over and over, those are habitual patterns of thought that at some point we act on. And when we act on these habitual way of thinking, we eventually wind up encountering the situation or the event that we played over and over and over. Now, truthfully, majority of the time, the events that show up may not coincide with what you habitually was thinking in detail, but if you look at the sensation you had behind the habitual thought, the feeling, you should feel that same way when a similar event show up, and that shows you have been habitually thinking about it. Changing our lives is changing our stories, changing the things we habitually talk to ourselves about. Our habitual way of talking whenever we are around friends. The stories that they're holding, pay attention to how you're responding to them because you'll notice that you're doing the same habitual act. If you're doing the same habitual thing every day, but you would like for your life to change, trust me, I know from proof that it can only change when you change those habitual stories you tell yourself. If you're in a relationship, for instance, and your spouse, you are going through certain things. You know how we all, I guess, experience small, minute things in our relationships. Now it's going to turn into a boulder from a pebble if you habitually act the same way. If you habitually react internally with the dialogue you typically use regarding whatever situation show up, you can expect or predict how that outcome is going to turn out because it's a habitual habit that both of you are displaying. In order to control that, you just have to control your habitual way of reacting and be aware of that. If you react this way, is that associated with your current present reality that's real? Or are you clinging on or holding on or reacting from a habitual way of thinking and expressing yourself from similar situations that are no longer happening, sort of in the past? If that's what you're doing, stop and analyze it. Look at it and see which one are you doing. Which one are you feeding, your past or your present? Because if you're going to feed your present moment, that means you have to disconnect from your habitual way of reacting internally and your habitual way of reacting externally, which is how you're going to express yourself. This helps negate so many of the things that we may experience in relationships and just in life in general. Example, if you're going to work and you habitually react to a person who never speaks to you at all, and you habitually ignore them, it'll never get better. You have to break that cycle and speak, regardless if the other person speaks. You're allowing yourself to be free from the story you tell yourself when you walk away about that person that you habitually say, and that's why that person is the way they are towards you. It's pretty simple. It sounds a little complex, but it's easy. When you change your perception of what you're perceiving and relinquish the habitual habit of reenacting or reaction or stories you're telling yourself on the inside, you change your environment. Your environment is matching your habitual way of being. It is not happening to you, it's responding to you. To change it, all you have to do is come to the realization that you are controlling these habits. These habits are not controlling you. You start in the morning, okay? You start when you wake up. Be mindful of what you typically do in the morning after you wake up. You can change that habit. Most of us want to run to the restroom. I'm not saying change that, because you may be in a position to where you have no choice. But from that point on, start being mindful of what you're doing. Do it for a day. Do it for 2 days. You'll start seeing your habits. Write them down if you need to. And it's going to show you that these habits that you're doing daily, are they moving you closer to your goal? Are they resolving issues? Or are they keeping you away from your goal? Or are they causing confusion? Focus on all of your habits. There are so many individual habits within the day that we do unconsciously and consciously that it's a lot of work to mind yourself, to focus on yourself, to be self-centered so that you'll know the habits you're using. Are they helping you or are they hindering you? Once you start being aware of your habits, you actually become aware of self. You become part of the phrase that's used, know thyself. Because when you know your habits, you know yourself. You pretty much will have a good idea on the outcome of your life when you know the habits that you're doing on a daily. When you start changing these habits and allowing yourself to automatically place these habits into your automated system that operates in your life and dictate your environment because of the previous habits that were already put inside of your consciousness, you'll start having more control over your destiny. Because you control your habits, you control your destiny. Control your habitual way of thinking, you control your habits. This is all we have to do. Manage our habits. I mean, there's several other things we have to do, but when it comes to habits, focus on your habits. Focus on those, because that is the beginning stage of being aware of thyself. That is how you start really knowing the inner you. And this is what places you in a position to where you can control your destiny. Our habits definitely dictate our world. We become disciplined at reorganizing, redoing our habits and our habitual way of thinking. Our life has no other choice but to correspond with the way we are starting to habitually program ourselves. All right? So if you like what you heard, hit that like button. And if you would like to hear more content like this, hit that subscribe button, and we can move forward and control our destiny from pure consciousness and awareness. All right? Thank you and have a wonderful day.